Great. Well, welcome to the final session, Call to Action, Next Steps to Carry Us Forward. That brings us to introducing our Senior Program Associate, Erin Elaine. Erin, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you, Joe. If you don't mind going to the next slide. All right, well, hi everyone, and thank you for joining us for the last session of today's symposium. Throughout today's sessions, we heard from experts in a variety of fields discuss why employment is pivotal to sustained addiction recovery. During this session, I'd like to take some time with you highlighting some of the key takeaways we learned from our presenters and hear from you what you're taking away from today's event. We heard from speakers across many levels of experience in this field, and they had so many great takeaways, so I'll only share a few here for the sake of time. Also, since we have no way of sharing applause, feel free to use the chat feature throughout the next several minutes to share some appreciation for all of today's presenters. They really did a phenomenal job and put so much work into what they shared today. So feel free to call them out in the chat, and I'll make sure that they see it. So let me get started with an overview of some takeaways that I noted from the presentations today. So this morning, we heard from our keynote speaker, Secretary Walsh. We heard him discuss how essential it is to support people with substance use disorders for our country's long-term recovery from COVID. He said something that really stuck out to me. He said, the bottom line is this, employment is a critical ingredient of the recovery recipe. We also heard from ATR Director Rebecca Starr in her opening remarks, and she underscored the importance of good quality jobs that lead to sustainable careers for people in recovery, and the essential need to band together to create partnerships that work across multiple systems. Oh, I love seeing all the chats rolling in. Thank you guys, I appreciate that. In the second session that was called Answering the Why, we heard from Drs. David Eddy and Dr. David Best on some of their research supporting the importance of employment and social connection for recovery capital. Dr. Eddy's work really highlighted how people in recovery have multiple systemic barriers to employment, particularly people who identify as Black and have a history of multiple arrests. These individuals are less likely to be employed or retired and more likely to report being unemployed and disabled. However, he ended on a note of hope, which was really great to hear, that employment can be an axle for recovery capital, increasing quality of life, self-esteem, and happiness. Dr. Best's work highlighted that the strongest predictors of recovery include positive social networks and engagement in activities that provide meaning, identity, and self-esteem. Meaningful activities and social engagement really matter for well-being. I'm sure we all know that. I know we all appreciated Dr. Best's good-humored acronym for meaningful activity, GOYA, not referring to the food company, but get off your arse to build recovery capital. I thought that was pretty funny. So some good laughs going on in the chat while that was happening. On our third session, Banding Together, it was all about the importance of cross-systems collaboration. You heard from Ramona Rivera-Reno and Doreen Tracy of the MassHire Career Centers discussing how they've worked to build more partnerships in their communities to support job seekers in recovery. They both emphasized self-confidence as a main barrier and how the Path to Empowerment curriculum taught by our MassHire staff work to build self-efficacy, reduce that digital divide, which is such a tough one in the Zoom environment, and make connections with employers. I've attended a few of the Path to Empowerment graduations, and it's really remarkable to hear how much their students learn in 3 short weeks. Their Zoom dance parties are also so much fun. They're a great time, a great bunch. Shout out to Roy and James out in MassHire Worcester for sharing that fun activity with us. Joey Kuzi, Executive Director of NECAT, and Bristol Community College Dean Vinny Reggae also shared how their programs evolved and company culture changed to really meet students where they're at in their recovery journey. I loved how Joey said, building a personal connection with our students is our magic sauce. Such a great quote. Both programs really took the time to look introspectively at how they could adopt a better approach and embrace students in their recovery with all of their challenges to make sure their systems communicate and support students. It's super important. Our fourth session, Rally Employers, drove home the argument that now is the time to advance recovery-ready workplaces. In this session, AHP's Phil Rayner, Tina Wilson, and Amy Harding shared some statistics about the scope of addiction in the field of employment. One that really stuck out to me, as I'm sure it did for many of you, was that 75% of employers have been affected by employee opioid use. It's a huge number. In addition to cost savings for businesses, they emphasize how organizational change and focused employment strategies that acknowledge, educate, and offer policies and practices to support employees can keep people in recovery employed and gaining both recovery and financial capital. In the video Phil shared, we heard from Dana LaRiviere, who spoke from the perspective of an employer who developed a recovery-friendly workplace. And he very poignantly shared the story of an employee who came back to work stronger in recovery. He said, and I quote, "Now we don't have to be recovery friendly. It's who we are. We're employee friendly." So great, right? It was great to hear that recovery friendly workplaces have also been cited as a priority of the Biden administration. If you're an employer and you're looking to become recovery ready, I hope you do reach out to Phil, Tina, and Amy for their blueprints on who to partner with to move the needle forward in your community. In our fifth session, the one that we just left, what we do and how we do it, you heard from my colleagues Casey Tiefenworth and Rebecca Starr about the work we do here at ATR with a laser focus on employment as a crucial part of our program. All of our job training providers work so very hard with ATR participants to keep the completion rates high and keep participants engaged. I've seen this work firsthand. They really are amazing. For more information about ATR, please take a look at our website or reach out to anyone on our team. We're all happy and willing to answer questions. You also heard from two former ATR participants, Israel Rosa and Tim Muse, who shared their stories and how they came to be involved in ATR and where they're at now. We're super proud of all of our ATR grads and are so grateful that they're willing to recover out loud by sharing their experiences with us. Israel said when he was incarcerated, he was lost, and when he got out, he was lost all over again with the changing technology and new environment. But ATR really helped him reconnect to services and skills he needed to pursue a career he's passionate about in harm reduction. While I wasn't able to hear Tim's section of the conversation, I've worked with him and I know he's an incredible speaker. One of my colleagues even mentioned he may want to pursue a career as a public speaker. He's so good. At one point, Tim was quoted as saying, "I belong, I found my purpose." So it's great to hear some valuable feedback from our ATR graduates as well. Their lived experiences are so important. All right, next slide, Joe. Or Tony. Thank you. So now that we've reviewed some of the main takeaways that our team noted, we really want to hear what you're taking home with you from today. What's going to be in your takeout box? So if you could take a minute to pull out a blank Word document or a blank sheet of paper like the one you see on this slide and separate it into 4 columns like you see on this page, however you'd like, just like the examples provided here. Once you have that blank piece of paper out, I would like you to title each column just like the example on the slide, with one column dedicated to fact, question, aha, and action. I'm going to pause for about 20 seconds to let you get set up before we get started with an activity. Scrolling through the chat now, and so great to see all the nice compliments here, especially from some of our folks in our P2B program, some of our teachers. Once you have that sheet up, I would like you to take at least 30 seconds to fill out one thing in each column. So in the first column, at least one fact that you now know that you didn't know before today. In the second column, one question you still have for our panelists. In the third column, one big aha moment, those new ideas that you have. And in the last column, probably the most important, write what actions you're going to take as a result of these new discoveries. So I'm going to give you about 2 minutes. I'll let you know when the 2 minutes are up, and then I'm going to ask you to share some of what you wrote in the chat. So let's hear from you all. You've been listening to us all day, and now we really want to hear from you in that chat. So start posting your facts. What are some facts you're taking away from today? I see employment does help with recovery addiction. That's great. Thank you for sharing that, Kendra. Lindsay said engaging in meaningful activities promotes recovery. Yes, absolutely. I love that. Nelson, I'm so glad you learned about the ATR program today. Yeah, Laura, 9.1% of the workforce is in recovery. That surprised me too. Thanks for pointing that out. Chime, yeah, great one, Taylor. That's a good one. Jenna, yeah, 1 in 12 workers have untreated addiction. That's a really high percentage too. I liked that from Tina and Amy and Phil's section. Wow, you guys have so many facts. I love this. Goya, that was a good one. Thanks, Anthony. I think it made us all laugh. Sherry, recovery capital is extremely important, along with decreasing the stigma around SUDs. Yes. Fact, relapse reduces to 14% in 5 years. Thank you, Danae. Communication works. These are all so great. I'm so glad you guys had so many facts that you wanted to share with us. Positive social support and connection is important, 1000%. Thank you, Tier. All right, how about questions? What are some questions you have that remain? What'd you write down in that box? Does Worcester have an ATR program in place? Yes, we do, Nelson. Take a look at our website or reach out to us via email. You're going to see our contact information on the last slide in this section. All right, question from Laura. What are the better career paths the ATR finds the IPS doesn't? That's a great question, and definitely something we'll consider in an ongoing discussion about the connection between ATR and IPS. Thank you for bringing that up, Laura. I saw there was a great discussion in the chat in the last section about that. It looks like Janie D is asking, does VA have ATR in place? I don't believe so. I think in Rebecca's section, she talks about how ATR, Massachusetts is really stuck with ATR. So the way we have it formulated in Massachusetts is unique. So if you're interested in learning more about it, we're happy to provide more information. All right, I'm seeing some come in from Susanna, my teammate who's taken a look. How can I have a higher success of employment with homeless individuals who stay in shelter very short term? That's a great question. You guys have so many great questions. See a whole bunch coming through. All right, so thank you for sharing all of your questions. If it seems like they've slowed down now, these are definitely great questions that we can consider, and I hope we can continue the conversation to answer these questions. Let's switch over to your aha moments. What surprised you most? What were some of those new ideas that came out? Pay for recovery housing. I like that, Millie. Our sober home services are so important to us. Felicia, recovery capital being the employment axle. I liked it when Dr. Eddie had said that too. Social connection, value, sense of belonging. Yeah, Anthony, I love that you said it takes a village. It's so unique and so important. Love the concrete examples of how to create a supportive workplace. Awesome. Yeah, Carolyn, thanks for bringing up drug courts. It's a great suggestion. Lots of our participants are involved in drug court as well. Jobs, friends, and houses across the pond. Yeah, that's a great example. People in recovery are 2 times more likely to be volunteers. Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing your ahas. All right, now the most important one. What are your action steps? What are you taking from this moving forward? What are those concrete things you're going to do to make change in the field that you're in? What else? What are those action steps? Oh, Felicia, good one. Helping employers see their role in building recovery-ready workplaces and identifying those employment sites. I like that. Oh, I like Kelly said, add a work study benefit, not just free hours to study. Solid. Heather, I like what you said, communicate more frequently and openly with our students to help them be more successful in training programs when issues arise, promote more training and information sharing around the team. Thank you for sharing that. Breaking the cycle and reducing stigma. Awesome. Increase collaborations to cast a wider net. I love the collaboration one. That was a really important point across our sessions today. Oh, I like this one. Change my initial new employee orientation to include some of the recovery ready workplace topics. That's perfect. And I hope you reach out to our AHP team for more information about their blueprint and how to do that. Katrina, improve recovery community at the hospital. Awesome. That's great. Well, thank you all for taking the time to look through this and think about your facts, questions, ahas, and activities. We can absolutely spend all day talking about this, but for the sake of time, I think we'll just move on to the next slide. Thank you guys so much. And I really hope you do take those action steps seriously and use this knowledge to move the dial forward. So, even though our time together here today is coming to an end, we don't want our conversations to stop here, like I've said. First, we ask that you use our hashtag WorkingRecovery2021 that we brought up through all of today's sessions to share what you've learned today with your various social networks. As a Twitter user myself, I've been keeping an eye out for your takeaways there, and I'm so excited to see your tweets. I've already seen some from Ria Vizenen, Associate Director of Mass Workforce, and Christian Arthur, a public health social worker. So if you guys are on, kudos to you guys for using our hashtag. Thank you both. In addition to continuing this conversation, we also want the learning to continue. So on this slide, you'll see some links to various resources that have been tremendously helpful for our team here at AHP and our community partners across Massachusetts. Joe, do you mind coming off mute to explain where folks can find these resources on Attendify as well?
Absolutely happy to do that. So we have just pasted these to the session description. So if you click on the call to action on the schedule here and scroll down, you'll see the full list of links.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. If there are any other resources that have helped you or your team learn more about this topic, please feel free to share those in the chat, and we'll make sure to compile them and share them back out. Thank you so much for tuning into this session and being so active in the chat. I really appreciate that. I've had so much fun hearing about what you've learned and appreciate your participation. For our final closeout, I'm going to turn it over to our ATR Director, Rebecca Starr, to share her closing remarks.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming. Thanks for listening. Thanks for challenging yourselves, for challenging us, the speakers. It's a thought-provoking issue. It's not just thought-provoking, it's serious. We need to do something about it. And I just love all of your ideas and your enthusiasm. It's been wonderful. And we really appreciate your time and effort into making today's symposium a great learning experience for all of us. I also want to thank everyone who worked on putting together this symposium, from Advocates for Human Potential, AHP, an incredible effort by all of us. I want to give a huge shout out to the digital strategies team and the marketing team here at AHP. They have helped us in hundreds of different ways, and I want to make sure to acknowledge them. And I know you've heard it before, but I want to remind all of you to fill out your evaluations. This was our very first national symposium, and we want to learn from you what went well and what we could have done better. And your comments in the evaluation will help us do that. We will be sharing proceedings from the symposium and video links and the PowerPoint presentations, and you can watch the sessions again. You can download the PowerPoint presentations to show to your colleagues. And we also hoped to bring more topics and more exciting ideas in the future. So please stay tuned for future emails about follow-up information. So today we've discussed different and perhaps avant-garde ways of thinking, and now we must have the courage to take what we have learned and what we are now thinking needs to happen into each of our respective organizations. It is not enough to talk, we must pursue action. We are the leaders of now, and we can make the changes necessary to change people's lives for the better. Thank you for attending ATR's first national symposium on how to connect people with substance use disorders with career-making employment opportunities. Thank you so much. Have a nice evening.